In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how to create a box and whisker plot in Google Sheets for activity 1.1.1, design as a process. So here I've got an example set of data that I'm going to show you to use how to format and create your own data set, as well as a box and whisker plot to analyze what your launch data looks like. So first off, we're going to go ahead. I've got a random set of data here that were done from a few test launches. I'm going to go ahead and select this. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go down to more cell actions, and I'm going to select to sort the range. We're going to sort from A to Z, meaning it's going to sort from the lowest number to the highest number, going from top to bottom. My next step, once I have that sorted, is I'm going to move over to the statistical analysis kind of items that we're going to use for our box and whisker plot. So first thing we need to know is we need to know the minimum value. Now we could always pull this value from the cell and type in 5, but if we ever change the data set, we want these to automatically update. So using formulas is going to allow us to do that. In order to use a formula, I'm going to type equals in the cell below the min. To start typing min for minimum. Once I have that, I'll select it, and then I'm going to go over here and select my data and press enter. So that's going to give me a minimum of 5, which we could see from the data. But again, if we change anything, this will automatically update. The next one's going to be the first quartile. I'm going to type equals, start typing quartile. That'll show up there. I'm going to select the data, and then I have to be specific. I'm going to press the comma key and press 1 to tell it that that is the first quartile that we want to put in there. Once I do that, I press enter, and that gives me a quartile of 7.25. The median is next. Finding the median value in our data set, so I can select our data and just hit enter. Q3 is very similar to Q1. We're just going to do quartile, select our data, but instead of a 1, we're going to do 3, and that's going to give me 15. And the last one, the max, I can select the data. So notice how it automatically thought it wanted this data set. I'm going to hit the X there for a moment, and I'm going to edit the formula. So up here in the formula bar. So instead of, I could redo this as well, but just to show you some formula editing, we're going to go from B4, which you'll notice it'll highlight there, colon B13. You'll notice how it highlights the whole data set. If I hit enter, that gives me a maximum of 23. Once I go through and I have my data, I can start to create my box and whisker plot. Now, one thing I'm going to do is box and whisker plots do not contain the median. So I'm going to select, and I need to have the very first setting for a box and whisker plot in Google Sheets is it wants some text to start off with for an axis title. So I'm going to select distance in inches, or B3, select over to D3. I'm going to skip over. I'm going to hold the control key, or if you're on a Mac, that would be the command key. I'm going to then select my Q3 and my max. So I'm going to omit or leave out the median value. I'm going to go to insert chart. From the chart type, I don't want a bar chart. I'm going to scroll down till I find what they call candlestick charts. This is another term for a box and whisker plot. So, and in here, I'm going to be able to see here is my different data set. So here's my Q3, we're hitting right at 15. 5, the little whisker is the lowest value. The 7.25 would be right about here on the y-axis, and then the highest value is set at 23. So here's what I'm going to end up doing is, if you wanted to edit some of these things, I could go over here to customize, go to like vertical axis, show the axis line. I usually like to show that y-axis line. You could change some of the colors and some of the formatting. For this activity, we're just going to use this as a little bit of a, we're not so much worried about the formatting as much as we are just kind of, can we get the data set? So I'm going to decrease the size of the chart and kind of stick that here underneath our data that we have going on. And again, medians don't show up on a box and whisker plot, so that's why we pull that data value up there. We can kind of see right there is roughly about the median of our data set right on the chart. So the question that remains is, could we use this to predict where our next launch is at? So again, as you go through and you look at your data, you could give a range. So like for me, with my launcher, I could probably go through my next data value would probably wind up somewhere between probably around 7 to about 15 inches is kind of where majority of where my launch data has been occurring. So again, as you get into maximum minimum values, like maybe some of the minimum ones, like when I launched at 5, those were maybe some misfires or some interesting things that happened. But otherwise, what it's filled in blue in the box, I could probably predict that's probably somewhere within that range. My next launch would probably fall somewhere at that distance. So that helps you kind of answer your question. So for this assignment, we could go through and you could put in your answer right down here. And again, when I grade, I'm going to look for, are you using your statistical data to go through and answer the question? All right, this finishes up activity 1.1.1, design as a process, and creating a box and whisker plot in Google Sheets to analyze the data. We'll be using this later to try to come up with a consensus as a class metric for being able to predict or have a consistent target distance for the rest of our activities in lesson 1.1.